Neil. All right, welcome everyone to tonight's select board meeting. Today, Monday, June 12th. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Trom, Thomas Lampoma, and Jeff Donahoe, and Stephen Whitley cannot be with us tonight. All right, so first up, we have points of pride.
Sure. Tonight, I just want to highlight the DPW who's running short 2 people, and they can't really take vacation in the winter, so they need to take it in the summer, which makes it even harder when we're down people. So they've been prepping the parking lot at Riverway Park and getting ready Farrington Corner for paving. So they've really been swamped, as well as with all this rain, it puts them a little bit behind, and the grass just keeps growing and growing and growing. So there's a lot of territory to cover there. So I'll just point that out.
Yeah.
And they will be grading next week if you live on a gravel road. They're feeling behind, but we'll be out doing that.
Yeah. I had actually seen Dan Blanchett this morning working up a sweat, working on the setup for the paving of the Riverway Park. He's doing everything he can with a short staff. I'd like to recognize Rob Duprice and everybody else who was involved in the Memorial Day ceremonies. It's nice to continue that tradition.
Rob Dappis.
Dappis,
Yeah.
excuse me. And the Kimball Cabins Committee for all of the work they've done over, I don't know, 8 years or so. They've really provided a wonderful asset for the town.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, so first under administrative, we have approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of June 12, 2023.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next is approval of the public meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2023.
I'll move and note I was going to propose one suggested change, and that's to section 6, new business. What Neil had provided to us was not just revenues, but revenues and expenses.
Good catch. And thank you, Kara, for helping us get through that without Neil. It's always difficult when you're not with us, Neil. Okay, with that small change, are you making a motion to approve?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right. Next, we have public appointments. First up at 5:30, Mike Moser. Hopefully I'm saying that right, from New Hampshire DOT, along with a few other folks from DOT.
First off, thank you for having us tonight. As you indicated, my name is Michael Moser. I'm the project manager on the Hopkinton 40633 project. So it's been a little while since we've had a chance to come out and talk to everybody. So we just kind of wanted to get out, catch everybody up on where we are, and with the intent that we'd be looking to go to another public information meeting probably sometime in August of this year. So we're meeting with you guys tonight. Next Tuesday, we'll be meeting with the Henniker Select Board, just kind of going over some of the alternatives and, we're trying to answer any questions before we get out in front of the public. So with that said, I do have a couple of colleagues, one from New Hampshire DOT, Chris Kozlowski is probably going to be our project engineer on the project. And then we also have a consultant on board, GM2. So we have a couple of representatives from there here as well, Darren Blood and Jen Mercer. So. All right. So a little bit of history. As I said, it's been a while since we've been out here. The last time we had a public information meeting was during the COVID times. So it was a virtual meeting back in March of 21. At that time, we did have a couple of concepts that we were presenting. Very similar to what we have here tonight. We just kind of went a little bit further in the design process. So the first one that we had was a signalized intersection. So I guess let me back up first. Sorry, let me back up for a second. So this is over in the West Hopkinton area, right at the town line. So this is just west of the Kentucky River bridges that we rehabbed for. So just kind of setting the tone here. But we had three proposals that were out there. The first one that you can see up on the screen, or if those in the room can look at the boards as well, was a signalized intersection. And don't switch this. I'm going to come back to it. But the second one we had was a roundabout that was going to be in that area. It was a hybrid roundabout where the traffic that would be coming on 2029 was going to be 2 lanes, and then the side traffic was going to be 1. And then the third one we talked about was a grade separated interchange, which is similar to what occurs on most of the routes right now. So from that meeting that we had, most of the main takeaways that we had in there was there's a desire to have more education on roundabouts. So when we come back in August, we're going to provide some more information on the design, some recent examples that we can share with the group as well. We heard there's a lot of importance about this being an east-west corridor, not only for the towns, but also for the state. So, we understand that this is an important roadway and want to continue advancing that as well. We understand that there's going to be some developments at this area, particularly in the Hopkinton side. It's a TIF district. So, we want to take that future growth into account when we go through our design. And then the other thing we heard is that, bike facilities should be considered. So it's something that we'll have to look at as we move forward. But just real quickly, like I said, we're looking at about the project area about 1,200 feet to the west of this, and then going to the east, basically over to the bridges. There would be a little bit of work that would be associated with Old Concord Road, New Hampshire 127. So we'll have to figure out exactly how far that's going to go, but that's going to be dependent upon the alternative that we select from the 3 that we just talked about briefly. So generally when we're at the DOT, we try to design for what we call our needs and our purpose and needs. So really here, it's the accidents that are there. We want to try to prevent some of those accidents. So we have a few different methods that we're looking at in order to do that. I know the big question that everybody's going to ask me is when would this be done? That's kind of up in the air right now. It's going to depend on what alternative we end up selecting, and then whether or not there's any right-of-way issues that need to be addressed. Currently, right now, I'm thinking it's probably going to advertise sometime in 25 with construction, again, dependent upon which alternative we choose, anywhere from 1 to 3 seasons. When we'll talk about that a little bit more down the road. So let's see. So one of the concerns right now is posted speed in that area is 55 miles an hour, but the 85th percentile speeds up there are higher. So I know one of the questions that has been asked on several other towns that I've been to is, is there a way that we could reduce the speeds? Unfortunately, if we do a speed study, which we basically have, and take a look at it, it doesn't merit lowering that speed limit. So we need to artificially do that, and we can do that either through that signalized intersection or through the use of the roundabout, which I'll talk about in a few minutes here. All right. So the first one that I want to talk about is up on the screen right now, is just the signalized intersection. So it's similar to what's out there now. The main difference would be we'd be looking at adding another through lane in each direction, but you'd have your on 2029, you'd have your dedicated through lanes, and then you'd have a left turn lane and a right turn lane on both of them. And then your side traffic on Old Concord Road, New Hampshire 127 would be very similar to what you see now. So we'd be looking at, 1 lane that's a shared use lane, a left turn and a straight through, or one that's a right turn only. So a couple of issues with that, and I think everybody's aware of this. I'll just reiterate them so that they're out in here. But we obviously have traffic that's going to be stopping. It's not a great condition. You probably see some rear end accidents. I understand that solar glare, when I've been driving down this road, is a concern. So that's something that we'd have to address with the signalized intersection as well. For the most part, the roadway alignment would stay the same, both horizontal and vertical. We don't see any major changes to that. The one issue with this is we did have our Bureau of Traffic that went through and took a closer look at this, and right now signals aren't warranted. So the amount of turning traffic that's out there doesn't really warrant having a signal. So we'd have to get by that. But I also understand that that's not what everybody wants to see out there. So we're just trying to show some of those alternatives that we have for the time being. Can you go to the second one? The second one is a roundabout. So this would be a little bit different than what's out there now, obviously. We'd be looking at having what we call a hybrid roundabout. So there'd be 2 lanes that would enter from the 202 Route 9 roadway, and then coming in from 127 or Old Concord Road, there would be 1. So that's, how we define the hybrid. Let's see, the proposed alignments would shift a little bit to the north, but for the most part, we'd be staying on line. We do have the control of the bridges to the east that we need to get back over. We wouldn't be looking to do anything that would force some, major renovations of those bridges. They were rehabbed a few years ago. So, we want to try to do what we can and not touch those. Along 127 Old Concord Road, there would be a little bit of realignment just to get them so that, they're basically going straight across when they enter into the circle. And, one of the things that this would do is, while it would slow down traffic, particularly on the east-west corridor, most times it wouldn't stop the traffic. So, we'd have the ability to keep traffic moving, hopefully, improve the crash statistics that are out there now, but we wouldn't have that stop condition. So that's one of the big advantages right there. Again, horizontally, there'd be some minor changes, but vertically, everything would stay very similar to what's out there now. We wouldn't be looking at, going up 5 feet or 8 feet. It would stay pretty much where we are. Excuse me. Let's see. All right. One of the advantages with this alternative is we do have quite a bit of right of way on the north side, so we could look at shifting things a little bit further north to stay away from the Dunkin' Donuts and the campground that's down there. So that would be something that we were looking at as well. Am I going to the? And then the third option that we've looked at here a little bit, and we expanded upon our analysis from the previous meeting a little bit, is this grade separated interchange. I think everybody's familiar with this. There are several of these interchanges on Route 9 202, between here and Hillsborough in particular. There are some advantages. Obviously, we'd be keeping the east-west traffic flowing at a constant speed. North-south traffic would have the option to go across Route 9 202. Obviously, I talked about not much of a change in the horizontal and vertical alignments for those other 2 alternatives. Here, horizontal would stay similar to what's out there now, may have to shift a little bit, but it would be close. Vertical, though, obviously, the Old Concord Road and New Hampshire 127 would go up significantly. We'd be looking at, probably upwards of a 20-foot profile change, which would affect, the Dunkin' Donuts that's there, would also affect potentially parts of the campground on the southern side. In addition to that, to the east, there's the bridges that we're showing there. In order to keep the decel and excel lanes that we have, we'd be looking at major renovations on those bridges, which were just, rehabbed about 5 years ago at this point in time. And then the other big issue is, the Hatfield Road interchange that's on the east side of the Kentucky River here. We'd probably be looking at the acceleration lane almost merging into the deceleration lane from here. Generally speaking, we want to keep these interchanges about a mile apart. In this case, we're just over a half a mile in between the center line of those 2 interchanges. So from a geometric standpoint, it's very difficult for us to do. The other issue with that is it would be very expensive. It's going to be on the order of 10 times the cost of either of the other 2 alternatives. So, it's a significant cost and potentially a significant delay because we don't have that money budgeted in our 10-year program right now. So we'd have to find that and work through those issues. Let's see. So from our standpoint, as I said, really just wanted to introduce the concepts again, make everybody aware of what's going on, with the understanding that we'll probably be looking at a public information meeting sometime in August. And, with that said, I was going to ask if there was any questions or if you had any input that you wanted to provide to the department.
The the traffic circle that you're potentially envisioning is an example of that. Say the one in Keene, going out of Keene towards Vermont?
So that's similar. The issue with the one in Keene is it's 2 lanes all the way around.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter which direction coming from, there's 2 lanes that are going into it. We'd be looking at 1 lane going into it north-south, but that is a similar traffic circle, yes.
Is there one that's identical to what you're envisioning in this area?
Not that I'm aware of in this area. I
Mhm.
mean, I can bring some samples from other states, but oh, the new one? I'd have to,
And actually, I think the Keene one he's referring isn't the 2-lane one, but the 1-lane one on Route 9 to Vermont. I think
That-
that's 1 lane.
oh, or I'm sorry, I was thinking of the one that was on 12 that's over by the mall area.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot like.
Oh, okay.
When we go to the meeting, we will have some examples that we can show and hopefully some aerial photos from some other areas as well.
Thank you.
So it sounds like the third option, you said 10 times the cost, probably delay. Are the first 2 more similar in terms of like cost and timeline?
Yeah, so what we're thinking right now is the signalization, because we would be adding a lane. We're probably, looking at somewhere around $2 million in the season to construct it. The roundabout is probably a little bit more, probably closer to 2.83 million, somewhere in that ballpark. And we're probably looking at a year and a half or season and a half to finalize that work. Whereas with the grade separate interchange, like I said, our estimates now are upwards of 20 million, and we're probably looking at 3 years to do that, depending on what the phasing is. And then we'd have to phase the bridge work, which could be problematic.
And how do you get around the acceleration deceleration issue? Does it exist in other parts of the state too? And you just figure it out? Because that sounds like that would be
Are you talking about for the grade separate interchange now?
yeah, for the third one, you mentioned the Hatfield.
Yeah,
issue.
so what we could look at doing is basically connecting them. And then you'd have, the weaving traffic that we're trying to avoid. There are other places. It's not an ideal situation. And,
Mhm.
we would not want to propose that.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
So your next steps, as far as we're concerned, what is our involvement?
Like I said, we're gonna have a public information meeting. We'd be, open to having you attend that meeting, provide any input that you want. Really what we're trying to do is, listen to the board and see if you guys have a preferred alternative that we can move forward with, trying to build consensus about what makes the most sense right now.
Mhm.
I don't know if all of you know Mike Tardif, the executive director of Central New Hampshire Regional Planning. He's here. He's coordinated the last 2 meetings, which were pre-COVID, with Henniker and Hopkinton together. And he's here tonight too.
Nice.
So, Mike, this group will be in Hacker next week as well. An interesting process going back to our 2015 transportation improvement program. The first time this was in our 10-year plan was 2017. Remarkably close to that actual timeline now, even with all that's gone on. Because that, even back then, we looked at 2026 as construction year. That first thing. So, even though it does seem like there's been a while since we talked about it, and things have happened. This is that time to be talking about, moving forward in the project planning process.
And in that original 10-year plan, the 2 EDCs got together and actually had it moved up in the plan as it went through the process.
Had a toehold in the 10-year plan, and then the next cycle, both towns made a pitch to move the project up 1 year in construction. We had never had that happen in our regional transportation. It actually slid back the next year. But now, we're still within the general timeline that was identified back.
And I'm sure Mike will be reaching out to Neil in the future, just keeping everybody abreast as to what's going on as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So we're 10 minutes early for our next public appointment.
He's here. if you-
Oh, okay. Nate Gagney
My guess is he would not mind going.
regarding Hatfield Thane Road. Okay. Yes, I know. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for taking the time to see me. My name's Nate Gagney. I'm here representing the landowner for the proposed Thane Hatfield Road intersection change. Property owner is D. Gilroy. So I looked into revamping this road proposal. This road proposal was started and approved back in the mid 1990s by the previous landowner that owned the property. And then I believe he never followed through and the proposal was dropped. So I'm hoping to revamp that. I met with Dan Blanchett, the road agent, last year and again this spring, and these dimensions outlined up on the screen are Dan's recommendations that work for both of us. So you can see the existing Thane Road and then the new proposal. Both pieces of property on either side are owned by the Gilroy family, except for the very southeast corner of the road where it starts to divert into the new section. The current owners, the neighbors, Doug and Martha Johnson, are on board with the road change, and I've worked out an agreement with them to allow that to happen. Yeah, right. Yeah, just across the street from the driveway. That being said, the new proposal pushes the road about 70 feet up the hill. Dan was on board with this and liked this idea because the apron of Thane Road entering onto Hatfield Road widens. He has a really hard time, especially during the winter, trying to get the plow trucks to turn in and out. So he did like that. We're the family's obviously on board because it pushes the road away from the house. The house is very old, so both Hatfield and Thane roads are very close to the structure. In addition, we wanted to make sure this also stays a dirt road because of the scenic area that Thane is.
Did you discuss that with Dan?
Yes. Yeah. No, everything here was to Dan's specifications. And it was interesting taking the initial plan that was approved back in the mid 90s and then laying this over top. It was only off by just a few feet. The big change over the years, the driveway shifted farther to the east down Thane Road. The initial proposal was the driveway would come out directly onto Hatfield. That wouldn't be the case. The existing driveway would just would protrude farther out, heading south to stay connected to Thane.
And we own that land to the south of the existing road?
No, Dee Gilroy, the property owner, actually owns both sides. So the road would be shifting on her property. And then the little piece to the southeast is owned by the neighbor, the Johnsons, who've agreed to the change. Dan asked for that just so the swing wouldn't be too aggressive. He liked the plane of the road swinging a little softer, so that's why we wanted to start it a little farther down.
How big's that lot?
Which lot?
Uh,
The tiny one?
The one to the south.
The one southeast of the new road.
The piece that from the neighbor,
Nope.
or the piece that the new proposed road would be going through.
Yeah, southeast of that.
It's only just a couple acres.
They're big enough for a house lot? Are we creating a house lot?
Oh, no, not even close. This would split it in half. So you'd have maybe a quarter acre when you're done on the south side of the new proposed road. Yeah, there'd be no way to put a house there.
And this would be done all at the homeowner's expense.
Absolutely. I've already set up the P&H Homes, who's local in town, would be doing all the site work.
So town meeting basically approved this in 1994. So it seems like the best way to do it, if you want to do it, is to go through the dedication and acceptance process, where it would go to the planning board, and that's really the dedication, and the owners agree that they're giving up that property to have the right of way. And then it comes back to the board for acceptance. It seemed, though, that it was important to have this meeting to talk about the concept, because if you don't think you're going to support the concept, then there's no reason to proceed with any of the other parts of
Was
that.
that existing roadway a right of way, or do we own it?
It's a right of way. Yeah. And the 1994 Warren article actually discontinued that if the new road went in. So that vote has already passed town meeting, if that were to happen.
So they have to provide the town with a right of way to, and they'd have to incur the cost to build that road.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is it new owners or something? I'm just wondering why so much time has passed and it's just been lingering.
So it's still the current owner. The current owners own the property for close to 30 years. If you had taken a look at the property 30 years ago to now, it looks like two different properties. A lot of work has been done in cleaning the place up. A lot of effort made. This was brought, we talked about doing this probably about 10 years ago. Prior to that, circumstances didn't allow for it, but within the last 10 years, the previous owner, who was uphill, wasn't necessarily for the little land swap in that southeast corner. So there was no point in trying to pursue it if it wasn't going to be done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, it was actually the neighbor that had approached me after hearing the idea and was all for it. We would have liked to do it a couple of years ago, but there were two of the daughters that got married on the property, and there was no way that was going to happen during wedding
Got it.
season.
That makes sense. And you might have covered this, and I apologize if I'm missing something, but if it changes the existing road, then does that just, what happens to that?
That hopefully will be some nice green lawn. Just creating more of a buffer in between the road and the house. Currently, there's a stone wall right up against the existing road, a
Mhm.
little hedge, and then it's only about 25 feet to the house.
Mhm. And so, but does that mean does that become like town property or what happens to the?
No, that's what town meeting voted to
I see,
discontinue
okay.
because the property owner owns the property and we just have a right of way. So
Gotcha,
that would
okay,
end
that
that
makes
right of
sense.
way
Okay,
on the existing Thane Road, the hash mark
okay.
piece.
So obviously Dan is part of this. Do you have any concerns, Neil?
No, it improves, makes it closer to a 90-degree angle, which is generally a safer intersection. I think the sight distance is as good, if not better. I think actually because of the angle, it's better. And Dan was fine with that. It does make it will be designed so it's easier to plow there too.
Nice. Any other questions? Okay. Are you all good with doing the, what did you call it? The dedication and acceptance approach? Neil, was that what you suggested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do we need a motion?
And actually it was in 1988 that was approved. The 94 vote allows you to accept this, to go through this process. Otherwise, it would be dedication and it would take town meeting vote to do, but the town meeting gave the select board that authority in 1994. So I don't think you even need a vote or anything at this point. Just a consensus that it should move forward and it will come back here and you'll vote for the acceptance after a public hearing. There'll have to be a public hearing.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, I think we have consensus.
We do.
All right,
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. We're way ahead of schedule. Okay, so Rick is not
Did Rick contact you about coming? Did he talk to you about coming?
No,
I'm curious if you forgot.
he's not scheduled for another.
Right, totally.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we can do move on to old business. Okay, so we've got a lot under the summer project update.
Sure. It feels like a lot's going on. So some excavation, well, all the fencing first and then excavation at the barn should begin this week. We'll lose about 6 spaces at the Slusher Center parking during construction, 3 on each side. The library has moved or is in the process of moving all their patio things, which the patio actually should have been done last week. I'm not sure that it was. So they will come in, do the excavating, and all the prep work will be done by the end of June. And then the building moving company comes in and they do all their work. So by mid-July, the building should be up in the air so that the foundation people can come. And then they do the foundation and then it gets lowered and we go from there. So it's good to have that moving forward. Riverway Park should be paved tomorrow, weather permitting. It's ready to go. Farrington Corner is the big road getting paved that they have been working on getting the culverts all replaced and getting that ready. So that is ready to go. The library patio has been worked on. I think that's just about done. I couldn't remember where the George Park fence was the last time I was at a meeting, but that is complete. And there's some parking area there. DOT is going to be putting up no parking signs on the opposite side of Park Avenue. So there'll be parking on one side, but not the other side. I think those are the major projects going on.
Right.
Neil, when do you expect the Houston barn to be completed?
Before snow flies. Although that's kind of a big window. unless it comes early. Really, the foundations will start mid-July, so it should be fairly close to being done by the end of the summer.
Great. Okay, thank you.
It should be interesting. So I encourage the seniors at the Slusher Center to watch the project from the Slusher Center. There's nice big windows. People should really stay out of that area as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So the George Park fence is done.
Is done.
And so we split that with the schools. What's next on what's happening now with?
I think nothing else this year. I
Okay.
think scheduled were the restrooms
Mhm.
and that for this year, but during the budget process that got pushed off. I can't remember if it's next year or the year after now.
The bathrooms
the
are next on the.
Bathrooms are next.
And I can't recall, are we splitting the costs? No, it was just,
No, this was, we split the cost on this one, which was good to move the fence along quicker because that was
Yeah.
further down. And it was about 34,000, so it was 17,000 each.
mhm. Okay. Anything else on summer projects? All right. Next, under old business, we have the pay by bag discussion. I just thought we could regroup since the last meeting we had the Waste Reduction Committee present. And one of the things, I know Neil's been in discussions with the NRA, and then we also had discussed trying to engage directly with the Webster Select Board.
So NRA's been doing their thing. Either next week or the week after, we're finalizing that. Their person who's been reviewing will meet with Jolene and I probably next Wednesday. So we'll have some initial discussions there, and then he'll go back and prepare a report, which will come to you after that.
So he's preparing a report with recommendations or?
He's reviewing all the finances. It should have recommendations on a wide range.
Okay.
After our meeting next week, I'll know better.
Okay. And
I think he's also looking at facilities, and I think it's a broad review.
mhm. And we talked about meeting with the Webster Select Board. Now I can't remember exactly what, I think Stephen came up with the idea, actually. Do you remember what we were thinking specifically to address? Or,
So I know when I met with the Webster Select Board and we had talked before about they're sort of happy to redo the 1975 agreement also. So we talked about starting to put that. So maybe an initial meeting talking about that and what the two boards together want to see within that agreement as we begin to rewrite that. And that requires town meeting approval in
Yeah.
both towns. A lot's changed since 1975.
mhm.
From your impression, do you think they want a change in the way it's managed between the two towns? Like, do they want to see one party manage it more than the other?
I think my sense is, and I certainly don't want to speak for the, is we want to get the agreement closer to what we actually do. And to figure out the whole, the refuge disposal committee is not really functional. They don't have any members at the moment. And how is the best way to sort of manage that and have input from both towns as that management happens. But largely, like all of our departments, it's managed by staff. And I think that's the way everybody wants to keep it. Now, how that gets tweaked and what kind of oversight is there, that would be some of those questions.
I'm just looking at my notes from our last meeting. Yeah, we have the cost accounting, NRA, stickers / compliance. So I think an initial meeting would be helpful with the Webster Select Board. So do they have a town administrator?
They do.
Oh, okay. So can you talk to them about, okay.
Set that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. All right, anything else on pay by bag? Okay, so we can move on to new business. First up, we have the fair parking lottery.
It is lottery time.
Have you experienced this?
Yeah, I gotta pick them last year.
Yeah.
That was the
okay.
first thing I wasn't.
It might have been.
I don't know.
Pull up the list.
Seems like the longest list that I can remember.
It is definitely the longest list.
Are there 4 Legion affiliated groups?
3, I think.
So that's probably one of the, there's 3. And
No, there's 4.
oh, is there 4?
Well, one's missing a
Legion, the
number.
Sons of the American Legion, Legion Squadron, and the Ladies Auxiliary.
First.
Is Hopkins Hawks baseball also American Legion Sons?
No.
Hop.
'Cause
Yeah.
There's one that's missing a number.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Wait a minute,
No,
is
I-
number 5 and 10 the same? American Legion Post number 81 and American Legion. 81?
So there's the Legion Post. And because I sent out the email, which I think I included.
Yes.
Asking if they were the same. So their response was,
But I don't know. I think Sabrina just said it.
there are
Between 8 and 9, the Sons of the American Legion are there without a number, unless they're Son of the American Legion Squadron. I guess that's what it is, because McCluskey runs that.
it's American Legion, Sons of American Legion Squadron. I guess that it doesn't print.
Yeah.
So when I asked, they said there are 3 organizations within the American Legion, the Legion itself, the SALs, Sons of the American Legion, and the Auxiliary. The SALs work separately to assist veterans with their needs, as well as scholarships for high school students that qualify for our scholarships. The money from the fair parking will assist veterans. The Legion and Auxiliary do their scholarships and assistance. We're all different organizations that operate at the American.
Mhm.
Okay.
Having sat through the installation of officers, I can tell you they're separate and very slow.
Oh.
Okay. So I forget how we did this last year.
So
Yeah, ping pong balls.
there are ping pong balls, 1 through 11 in here. So we start
Some of them
with,
don't want Thursday or Friday though, right?
right, but we do, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday, and Thursday.
Got
We
it.
do them in order of importance, so. We may have to pull some out.
Once they get one, they can't get a second one. Is that right, Neil?
That's right. Once they
All right.
have one. So the first one is Saturday.
Is that the most coveted?
It is.
That is the
That would
most
be-
coveted. Let me share this just if anyone's
We
watching.
have a drum roll. Yeah.
And I think I've done it so nobody's email is showing. That's why it's kind of looks.
We have Cub Scouts.
Last one in.
So Saturday is number 11
Mm-hmm.
Cub Scouts.
Number 8, baseball team.
Sunday is baseball.
Wait, I don't think it goes back.
Hang on.
Oh, doesn't go back. in.
Don't
It's
put it
okay,
back
if we
in.
pull- If we pull it out, we'll just.
It's out.
We know.
It's out.
Okay.
Okay, so then we go to Monday. And if you pull out, there's 2, if it's girls soccer or Red Hawks football, they cannot do it. We'll pull out
9, Legion Squadron.
9 Legion Squadron.
Okay.
And then Friday,
Number 2, HISA.
is HISA
Nope,
Oh,
up again.
and,
One more.
Oh,
and Thursday.
Oh, good catch. That is 7, high school track and field. Unless-
They did not,
Oh.
they could not do Thursday.
Okay. Red Hawks football?
nope.
They could not do Thursday.
Girl Scouts?
Girl Scouts. All right.
Yeah.
So Saturday is Cub Scouts, Sunday is baseball, Monday is Legion Squadron. Friday is HISA and Thursday is Girl Scouts.
Well done.
Done for another year.
Oh, good save though.
That was close. All right. Thank you for organizing that, Neil.
We'll
is
have
a
a
thrill.
machine next year that spits out the ping pong balls.
Okay, next we have Community Power Committee.
Sure.
I know you may want to hold off on that
Okay,
only because there were people that wanted to come to that.
okay.
Steve is here,
Right. And I told them, oh, we'll never get to that before 7.
Mhm.
So,
I want to be home by 7, Neil. Come on.
well,
Okay, so we'll pause that.
at least pause that. And if,
Okay.
Okay, so then Public Safety Revolving Fund expenditure.
sure. So that is in there. The public safety fund, public safety revolving fund is where the money from details goes and we pay the details out of there. The town established that a number of years ago. When it was established, it could only be used to pay that. And then we were building up a surplus. And so a number of years ago, 5 or 10 or somewhere in that range, it went to town meeting, was voted that it could also be used for public safety equipment so that we could do that. So through the years, as that fund has built up and it's over $60,000 now, we've used it to buy equipment. So the proposal is to buy a UTV for the fire department. The use of the trails has increased dramatically and they're doing a lot of rescues out on them. And so this would come out of that fund.
Okay,
And how much of the fund will it use?
It will use most of it. There'll be a couple thousand left,
And
but
is there a reason that we didn't get quotes or issue a request for quotes from various vendors?
this is a state bid, I believe. I'm sure it is. And we did try to get other quotes.
Okay.
We had some from other local vendors. So
all right. Do we need a motion or anything? Or we,
yeah, if you could vote just to approve that purchase out of that fund.
we'll make that motion.
I'm not pulling up the actual wording. Or,
Just to approve the purchase of a UTV for the fire department from the public safety.
Just the
revolving
motion
fund.
Sabrina was going to make, Neil. Perfect.
Yes.
so
Well, Ken was looking for the language.
Okay, Ken moves. I'll second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. You say aye, Jeff?
Yes, it is.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right. Last under new business is road bond resolution.
So you should have a resolution that's a page and a half. That basically is the resolution to approve going through the municipal bond bank for the $2 million bond that was approved at town meeting. And then we have the agreements that just need to be signed and quadruple.
I do not have that.
Yeah, it's not, it's in the,
It was in the
it's
packet.
Packet.
it's in the packet though.
Oh, wait, oh, did I?
It was online.
Oh, I sent it out. I can pull that up. Seems like there was a lot of stuff coming and going to that.
Oh, yes, you did. Okay, so do we just need to sign or do we need to,
You need to adopt this resolution.
okay? Is that with a motion?
With a motion, and you can just move to adopt the authorization of bond and approval of loan agreement with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank.
I'll move it.
Okay. I'll
Second.
Jeff seconds.
By the time I get it, it will be too late.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
And then I think just Sabrina has to sign where the little yellow things are.
Okay. Okay. I don't know who Rick is. Is Rick here?
Yeah, Rick's here.
Rick's here. Okay. So we can do our 6:30 public appointment. All right, come on up, Rick. Yes, please, then the mic can pick you up. Hello.
So I'm here, the chairman of the water board for Hopkinton, which is different than the Kentucook Water Board. We're separate. We have about 100 customers in town here. We are going through some issues with our water system operator at this point, which forced us to kind of look around and see what options might exist. I had previously spoken with the Kentucook crew after I found out they had an individual on staff who I thought was part of their staff. And we talked and we agreed that we'd sort of stay in touch and potentially in the future, maybe we could share resources and that would be beneficial to the town. So because we're looking at basically changing our water system operator at this point, and the water system operators, what they basically do for us or anyone is varied. Many of the things they do are quite simple. Like you had suggested that, maybe we should talk to the town and see if that's something that Sam would be able to cover for us in the near term or possibly in the long term. And essentially what we're paying our water system operator now monthly to do that, which is $1,200 a month. We would, pay for the, Sam's time or the town's time potentially, or pay the town for Sam's time. Sorry. Does that make sense? So that was the discussion. I have a couple of other things I'd love to bring up after that, just a couple of short things, but essentially sharing that resource, I think would be very helpful to Hopkinton in the near term and potentially the long term. We actually have a good contract with WSO when it comes to the yearly work that WSO does for us. And all the responsibilities are all spelled out. We have a scanned signed copy, all of that. So the requirements of, what we'd be looking for are quite clearly documented.
Did you guys talk to Sam at all about that?
Well, I talked to Sam, a couple of years ago, and I met with the Kentucook crew. So no, I personally haven't talked with Sam about that.
I talked to Sam 2 weeks ago about the general idea, because I'm also on the Hopkinton precinct board.
Shocking.
Right. So when this came up, there was an immediate desire to find some kind of potential short-term resolution if there was an immediate need. And so I reached out, I talked to Neil and then I talked to Sam, just to kind of gauge if there was an immediate issue and we needed like an immediate solve, if he'd be able to help us. And he said that would be no problem. And then I brought up this idea with him and it was definitely a longer term discussion. And it sounds like from some of the materials that Neil's been working with Sam, there's also kind of more of a staffing question around the sewer. But in terms of what the precinct water needs, he seemed really confident that it's definitely within the realm of what he does and what he does.
Yeah, I don't doubt his ability at all. He's a great guy. I know he works pretty much 7 days a week for me, the other, because he doesn't have a fill-in. And so that's why I asked, because I don't know how he could take on something else, frankly. For the short term, maybe for 4 to 6 weeks, but I can't imagine he could do it long, but I could easily be wrong. Happens all the time.
So the DES letter I provided, which we had just gotten not too
Mhm.
long ago, they strongly recommend for our wastewater treatment plant, we have 2 people on staff. So Sam is half-time there. So it seems like looking at the bigger picture and figuring out ways of what staffing do we really need and what can we cover and how can we pay for that,
Yep.
would be a really good conversation to have around, because it seems like definitely their recommendation is that we have more. Now, whether that I can't imagine what 2 people would do at just the wastewater treatment facility,
Well,
but
it's mostly the one to cover for the other on the
and
weekend or
largely
after hours or whatever, I expect, but
largely
what
it
is your
is.
timeline, Rick?
What is what, my what?
Your timeline? When do you need Sam to start?
So
Canyon.
our notice to our current provider is 1 month, and we'd probably want to give them maybe a little more than that. So say 2 months. So if we said today, 2 months would be the earliest.
Okay,
Do you have like a good outline or an idea of how much monthly hours it would take in terms of like how much maintenance they're currently doing, what they're currently operating?
I do. It's documented here, and I can tell you, first off, I'm no fan of our current water system operator. In fact, we have a huge problem right now that I'd just like to mention in passing. My guess is if they commit 3 hours a month, that's probably a lot, given this. They start the generator, they take water samples, they deliver them to Concord. And very similar. One benefit I would see with Sam or someone from the outside versus the sort of the closed loop that we've been in for a while is that we have someone else to look at our system and provide us another viewpoint, right? Here are some things I see, here's some ideas, this is important, this isn't, kind of thing.
so is your immediate problem expensive?
It's getting expensive.
I don't want to put you on camera saying.
No, I don't. I'll say whatever. I mean, none of this is, I'm happy to go and I'll keep it short, but I mean,
I'd be interested what the problem is, I guess.
so we have a conflict right now with water system operators who's been the system maintainer for many, many years, right? We engage with them to complete a project. The contract was, to say it's poorly written is really an exaggeration, right? We have a good contract here that someone helped us draft. But before I started, the contract was signed or the contract was produced. The project has taken many, many, many months, maybe even years longer than expected. And now that we're getting to the end of it, what I believe is happening is our provider sees the end and sees the end of a revenue stream. And they're probably getting quite alarmed with that because they understand, because of the souring of the relationship and my trying to basically hold them accountable for, if you bill us for $15,000, I would like something beyond a bill for $15,000. I'd like to actually know what the breakout is.
Backup?
Well, I'd like a little bit of documentation. And there's another codicil in the contract that says $20,000 when the project is finished. When we had the principal of WSO here Friday, for our Friday meeting, he yelled at us for 45 minutes at the top of his lungs. So it's like, this has not been productive. So we've been trying to negotiate with them by email. The latest email I have yesterday is that they're going to charge us 24% on the outstanding balance every month forever until we pay. So I think what they're doing is they believe they can bill us for anything they want to bill us for. And they don't seem constrained by actual reality and producing data. For example, we received an assurance that there were no more bills coming as part of this project, except for one wrench. And a few weeks later, we received bills for the project. So I don't honestly trust these people anymore. And I think we need to separate our interests from their interests because I don't think they align. So I think we have a problem that's getting progressively worse. And my second reason for appearing here tonight, which I didn't let you know about, is, so this is a volunteer position. I make $500 a year and I spend that and more than that on maintaining equipment, buying things, doing whatever I need to do for the water board because I think the water's great. And I'm learning a lot working with DES and all of that. But I do feel like I'm very much alone. I mean, my fellow commissioners, I think, are in the same position. I have these people on the other side who are making these outrageous claims. And every time I send an email, I get another, that's going to cost you. We actually have notice of violation from the state now because of the project that they did. The state came in and did their sanitary inspection, and there's a checklist, and they've told me they won't do anything on the checklist until we pay all of our outstanding invoices. And the project is yet to be completed. And as it stands right now, we're in a stalemate. So I went to DES and I sought some input. I said, we would like arbitration or something. How can you help us? Because right now the citizens of Hopkinton, their water system is at risk because of this problem that we're having with the vendor. And I don't want it to go on for any longer. So if we can just get someone to arbitrate for us, because I don't think these people are really going to participate in any sort of a civilized discourse, right? So they forwarded that to a group that we're part of called the Granite State Rural Water Association. And I've been talking with someone there about potentially stepping in and helping out. But since then, a couple of weeks have gone by, and I got to tell you, like, I'm not sleeping well. I'm not feeling well. I'm very stressed, and this is a difficult situation. I'm feeling really alone. So, any opportunity, if you guys have any assistance, maybe if there's someone on legal for town that I could just talk to and run these things by, and maybe they tell me to shut up, go in a corner, and pay the bills, or maybe they provide some additional guidance. Basically, that would be helpful. Because I just want to like hand in a letter and go back to my life. But I feel like I'd be letting a lot of people down if I did that. And I think this is a long-term problem that needs to be solved and hasn't been solved. And the can's been kicked down the road for 20 years. And now's the time to solve it before we create an even bigger problem for the precinct.
The operation of the system now is good, and you think it only would take 3 hours a month on average. I wonder if you could just talk to Sam if he's interested in that as a part-time job outside of being a town employee.
I think he's your employee, so I don't.
Yeah.
We'd have to.
Yeah, that's not.
He'd need to have insurance, Ken, I think. Which probably wouldn't justify the investment in insurance wouldn't justify the compensation.
So Sam would be the judge of the time involved, but I can tell you in this contract, it's clearly defined. And I can tell you our system operators, I mean, if there's 5 things in here, 2 of them they never do. And they have reasons, but they don't do them. Really, it's testing the generator, right? Yastrzemski services that for us, and taking the water samples, providing them. And then they assist with documentation and stuff, but I've been doing this for 2 years, so I handle that on my own. The CCRs, communication with DES and all those kinds of things, as well as applying for grants and things. We do that all ourselves.
And in terms of condition of the system, it just got upgraded, right? So there's no outstanding maintenance that needs to be done on it. There's no outstanding issues with it.
The sanitary survey identified a number of things for which we're going to have a notice of violation probably in the next few days, because I can't get these guys to address it. So we do have a problem. We will have a problem shortly with DES. They won't shut down the system. Bad people won't fly in black helicopters to take over, but they'll send us annoying notes and work to help us, right? In addition, there are some bugs in the existing code. We can't get drawings, we can't get code, we can't get training after we were promised that by Joe Demore, who sat there at our Friday meeting. Our February meeting. He promised those things to us. So we're operating at a knowledge gap. I'm a controls guy by training, so I can figure this stuff out over time, but it's dozens or hundreds of hours to sort through this. We really need them to provide this information to us as a long-term way for us to maintain and enhance the system. So right now we're okay. And when we have a power failure in town, whether it's 11 o'clock or 2 a.m., I put my clothes on and I run over there and I restart the system and I make sure everything comes up to pressure and I go back home.
So I guess my suggestion is I get a copy of what you need and what you're currently paying.
Mhm.
And then I'll sit with Sam and we'll work on to see if there is a plan or what we can do within that, and maybe have a discussion also with Kentucky Village Precinct and see if we can come up with a plan that would be the best for all the users. And we're clearly this building, we're on the water system. So
Right. I think there's two aspects to the service of the system. One is the regular maintenance. One is the extraordinary maintenance. When we have a break or something, you could still use WSO for that long term. We're looking at other water system operators that we might be able to transition in over time, which either could replace Sam's time or could supplement his time with the heavy equipment stuff. So I have this digitally.
That would be great.
Why don't I highlight the sections and put additional notes and send you the email, Neil?
That would be good.
Okay.
And then just the budget that you have that you're working with. So. you can
Okay,
Look at
I'll
that.
do that. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for.
Okay. Were we tabling community power committee for later or another meeting?
Actually, no, I think he'll be here any moment.
Okay.
It was Jack Ruderman, and I guaranteed him it wouldn't be till
Oh, right.
which I
Okay,
usually do not guarantee anybody anything, and now I'm regretting that.
well, we can move on to town administrator updates.
Sure. And I'll talk very slowly. No. Some things that are going on. We are in the middle of redoing the hazard mitigation plan. We're working with Central New Hampshire Regional Planning. That takes an amazing amount of time, but it has to be updated every 5 years in order to receive federal grants. We should be at the point of bringing it to the board in October. So we are getting closer. Last week, or maybe it was the week before, the alarm in this building was upgraded. We now have smoke alarms that are younger than I am. Just barely. No, they're all brand new. And they're all the same. We also moved things around so that they're in the right places. As we look at that area that's out there, our plan is still to in-house tear out all those walls that are from the police station dark room and the old bathrooms and all of that. So that's sort of that. Staffing, we're still short one police officer, although we do have someone in the pipeline. We are short highway person. We're short a full-time grounds person, and we're still short the part-time transfer station person. We do have little yard signs coming this week. We'll see if that works. Everybody's using them. I'm not sure that, but we're willing to try pretty much everything. I don't know if you saw Chief Hennessy's post about McLean's, the ongoing tractor trailer issue. It seems like after there was a meeting between DOT and McLean's and everybody was involved, that has gotten substantially better short term, and McLean's is working on a long-term solution. It's sort of been approached as how can we work together, because certainly we support having them in town, and they are a good business to have here. And I already mentioned that Farrington Corner is being prepared to be paved. And Ken's going to his list.
Actually, I'm looking at the packet you gave us. There's a grant authorization.
Yes. Which isn't on there, but we should do that as part of my report.
Okay.
So yes, so which you have a copy of. This is for a $37,386.07 grant, which will provide police overtime and equipment and supplies. It's an ARPA grant that has come out to provide extra patrols. This is a grant authorization to allow me to sign it like we have with all the other grant forms that have gone to the governor and council.
Mhm.
I'll move, we authorize Neil to be the signature for this grant authorization.
Actually, if you could move this grant authorization as it's written.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
They're very picky.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And Neil, you would also include it in the packet, the lease. Is there any reason you provided that?
Because it's expiring, so we can have a further discussion in non-public as
Oh,
how
okay.
you want to proceed.
Right, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on your list, Ken?
No,
Oh,
my
don't encourage him.
But we still have,
We're gonna try to lease the Horseshoe Tavern building.
Yeah,
We're not gonna sell it.
yes, although if we can work, we're trying to talk to the abutter. If we can get a little more land into a lot line, we could do that too. So, but I think probably leasing it is the I think the other option
The amount,
would take
is
too
it the
long.
amount of land that's the issue?
It's a septic, right?
I thought it was the septic being across the road.
Well, it's because it's the amount of land that's there. And the septic, they would not include the septic land because we don't own that. It's just, we just have a right of way. So if we have, that's their issue, that it isn't big enough.
Whose issue?
DS.
But we could get an easement and then subdivide. If we had a septic easement.
We have a septic easement. They do not count septic easements. We
Got
would
it.
have to own the land. We tried, that's what we tried to do, get it so that the easement would count as the land, which would have gotten us to that, over that hurdle.
So DES is involved in the subdivision, not the priest.
If a lot of a certain size, DS has to approve it, which I did not know until we got to this point.
okay, so can do public forum. Do we have anyone online?
Whoever had their hand up, put it down fast as soon as we turned there.
Would anyone like to make a public comment
there's a hand up.
with us? Come on up.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the board and to Neil for the sound system.
Oh,
It
good.
seems to be working, especially when they're facing that way, so. And it actually sounds better on the recording also because it's more directed, so that's good.
Not that it's Fender.
Bender,
Fender.
it is.
All right. No other public comment.
Up.
Oh,
Bonnie
Bonnie's
keeps
hand.
raising and low. Should we bring her over to see if she really wants to talk or if
Yeah.
she's just playing with her hand?
Yes, I would like to speak.
hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Just so you know, when you're online and you hit the raise hand thing, nothing comes up on the screen, so you don't know if your hand has been raised or not.
Oh,
It's very confusing.
that's annoying.
I actually have 5 things. Sorry.
It's a slow
The
night.
first is, slow night. I saw in the minutes, I believe in the minutes, there was a question about clarifying whether the new signs for the recycling area can be paid for out of the recycling revolving fund. And can we just clarify for the record that they can be? Which I think, Neil, you've clarified that to me, but just so the select board knows. Is that correct?
He doesn't believe me, so could you confirm that that is the case?
Wait, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so is that a question for us, Bonnie? Or what was the ask there?
well, I just saw in the minutes that you needed to clarify that they could be
Oh.
paid for out of the fund, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was on board that they
Gotcha.
can be paid for because they're close to being ready to order.
Okay,
So we need
Shall
to
they?
see them before you order. Don't order them without going through the correct process, though.
Correct. I believe I have. I think I've sent them to Jolene and the committee, and I think you've seen them, Neil.
I have not.
I think I've sent them to you, but I will send them again. Anybody else who needs to see them before we go?
How
Go
much
with-
do they cost?
Well, we don't know yet. We need to make sure that you guys are okay with the signs so we can take them to the sign place and ask them how much it will cost.
Oh, I think we're looking for the invoice. So the signs are fine. If everyone's in agreement, we just need the cost before you can order them.
I believe the size that we were looking at was quoted at $100 a sign.
How many are there?
I'd have to count. I'm gonna say 6 or 7.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so that one. Regarding pay by bag, are we pretty much on hold with that until you can meet with the Webster Select Board? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I don't know what you mean by on hold. I think Neil's going to try to set up a meeting between us and the Webster Select Board, and also is working with the NRRA to get the cost accounting and I think another list of recommendations. And so I don't know what else were you looking for?
Well, we would like to include in the signs a sign that says, remember to use your green bags. And is that okay? We would word it specifically, remember Hopkinton residents need to use green bags.
I don't know what the process is for the signs. I mean, I think I don't see an issue with that personally, but I don't know what the,
That's what's passed the town
I would-
meeting.
yeah.
I would assume there would be the transfer station committee would be in charge of these signs, right?
We don't have a transfer station committee.
Right. So they'll present them. We'll confirm with Jolene and
Yeah.
they can be ordered.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah. Yes, I
okay.
think that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry. Do you have any idea when you will be meeting with the Webster Select Board? Because we've been talking about this for months now and when, like,
Well, I think Neil that's on his list of things to do is to reach out to their town administrator to set up a meeting for the two boards. So soon, I hope. I mean, it sort of depends on their schedule, but I don't think we can guarantee a date until we actually talk to them. But I would say from our perspective, as soon as possible.
okay, thank you. Can we go ahead with the residency stickers? We talked about that at the meeting, that it would be a good idea regardless of the pay by bag or anything else. We need to know that only Hopkinton and Webster people are using the transfer station. We did come up with a couple designs for those. And I need to know, are they going to have numbers on them and be correlated to license plates as they were before? Or are they just stickers indicating that you live in Hopkinton or Webster?
So this is really a staff issue. And as I've said to Bonnie, if she comes in and talks, we can work through this. So, because we do order stickers on a regular basis. They've never been correlated to license plates, though. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, we spent a whole day doing that at the transfer station.
And we can't,
They're all sequentially numbered. They've always been sequentially numbered, and
we can't do anything on Webster using stickers, can we?
they use stickers too.
Webster has stickers?
Yeah, we have stickers that are two different colors between the two towns.
And so I think we had talked about maybe trying to make the stickers more visible or like a brighter color. I don't know who like actually designs them and orders them. Is that you? Or
Yes, I did it's not a very fancy design. When we went to pay by bag, we went to new stickers, and that's when we did that.
so I don't know the process for looking at like a different color or
And I think along with this is how when are the new stickers taking effect? There's a
Right.
lot of issues around how are they going to be issued and
Yeah.
done. So I think, they're not hard issues. We just need to have that conversation. And I think that's something we've always done, and the board doesn't really need to be involved in unless you want to be.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
I was gonna say, at the very least, it probably makes sense to hold off on that sort of thing until after we meet with Webster.
I think they would take that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So you don't want us to proceed with the stickers?
Were
Uh,
you thinking that the waste reduction committee would move ahead with trying to order stickers? Is that what you were thinking, Bonnie?
Well, I already designed them. And the question was, are they just going to say Hopkinton and Webster on them and be, correlated colors, one color for Hopkinton, one color for Webster, or do they need to be sequentially numbered? And if they need to be numbered, what is the point of the numbers? But it sounds like there are a lot of issues that need to be worked out. So if I come in next week and meet with you, Neil, can we work those out? Just move ahead somehow on some small thing at the transfer station. And this seems like some of the low hanging fruit that you guys have asked for, and we're willing to do it, but tell us when.
Sure.
And
I think actually I emailed you, responded to your email 2 weeks ago suggesting you come in and do those two things. So if you want to set up a time before 2 more weeks go by, that would be great.
Okay, so it sounds like that's something, I don't think the board needs to be involved in the details of the sticker situation.
Okay, and both DES staff people and someone from New London are willing to come and talk to the select board about setting up composting. Sabrina, you had indicated an interest in that and asked if we could move ahead on that. Would you like to schedule that?
Sure.
Okay.
As an informational, like, info gathering presentation.
Well, the idea was that New London did a very good pilot project, which has turned into a town-wide project. And now the city of Bow is taking the New London model and using that to start composting. And we would like to do the same thing. So if we got someone from DES and the woman from New London who set up their composting program to come, it could all be explained as to how they did it, what steps they went through, what, if any, regulations the town would need to comply with in setting it up. And then we could start the ball rolling, but we just need to set a time, get it on the agenda.
I would question the process that generally the committees put things together and then bring it to the board. Is the board going to do this directly? I think that's.
So you're saying process ideally would be that
But if waste reduction wants to do this, then they should put a plan together and bring a plan to the board that can be implemented.
This is the plan that we're bringing to the board, to hear from Maureen and from the woman at DES who's in charge of this. And that would be the first step in the process.
you want to say, Thomas?
Right, you're saying like the committee would say, we're gonna bring this to the board and bring it to the board. That's different than,
Then starting the process with the board.
right,
It's just a process
right,
question.
right, it's a
That
process
if,
question.
that
Like,
if the
have-
board's
like,
going to start doing all of these
like, call it-
things, then you're going to have to meet a lot more often. And
right, yeah, that's what I'm saying, like. It is like a weird process thing, but like, because this is just public comment.
Can you tell me?
Okay, cool.
Okay, tell me specifically what you want us to bring to you. So that I can produce it.
Be like a voted on recommendation.
Well, the entire waste reduction committee has been on board with this composting. We did a
No.
pilot project 2 summers ago.
Right,
We've been on
right.
board with it forever.
But this is public comment. That's why it's kind of like a weird, like. Calling into public comment with a proposed recommendation from a committee is not the same thing as. Presenting. A recommendation from a committee.
So instead of having that group come talk to us directly, saying process wise, they would talk to the waste reduction committee and then the committee would actually put together its recommendation.
Right, and really you vote on the final plan. I don't think anyone's against composting. I think people want it to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so does that make sense? That have you already had these groups come talk to the waste reduction committee?
I have been going to the New London Waste Committee meetings for several months. I've worked hand in hand with them. We've exchanged a lot of information. I've talked to the people at DES. We've exchanged a lot of information. I don't know. This whole thing with the transfer station is like there's nobody really in charge, and it's beginning to feel like the Waste Reduction Committee is supposed to be in charge of all this stuff. And if you want us to be, we can be. That's not necessarily what our mission is, but we can be if you want us to be in the absence of a refuse disposal committee. I'm just never quite clear on what we can go ahead and do versus what you need to give us permission to do and what you need to hear and who you need to hear it from before we can move ahead.
Okay, my interpretation of the conversation we just had is that the waste reduction committee would gather the information, as sounds like you've been doing, and put together like a proposal that then the select board would vote upon. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, so I don't think it's a matter of the waste reduction committee taking everything on and trying to do things on its own. I think it's a matter of organizing things like this composting idea, and instead of having the groups come talk directly to us, have them come talk to the waste reduction committee, and then waste reduction brings that to the select board.
Okay, could you put me on the agenda for the next select board meeting to bring that to the select board?
Will the committee have actually voted on the proposal by that point?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
It's really helpful to have the proposal by Thursday before, so it can go out in the packet, because it's really difficult to deal with things that come in last minute.
When is your next meeting?
It is, well, I'm looking at the calendar.
26.
Monday, June 26th. So that would be submitting materials to Neil by Thursday, June 22nd.
Well, we don't meet until Thursday, June 22nd.
So does Friday work?
Friday mornings.
Friday, the 23rd would work then? So you guys meet the 22nd, and then you can send information along to Neil on the 23rd for being included in our meeting on the 26th.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Was that your list?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. All right. Then we'll close public comment and go back to the Community Power Committee.
Okay, and welcome, Jack. We were waiting on you.
So my timing was way off tonight, but they waited.
When the select board reestablished the Hopkinton Energy Committee this past fall, it included a number of anticipated areas of work, including community power. As a reminder, community power, which was only allowed by the state and PUC within the past year, essentially gives the town the authority to become the default energy provider for town residents and businesses who haven't already chosen a provider instead of Eversource or Unitil's default service. The aim of having the town select the provider is to save residents and businesses money and provide more renewable options. If someone who hadn't already migrated to a competitive energy provider didn't want to be part of the town's arrangement, they could always opt out of it. Under community power, the utility would continue to maintain the lines and services and do the billing. Why the push statewide and in many New Hampshire communities for a community power option is that previously 90 to 95% of residential customers remained on the utility's default power. For those communities already having community power rates with whom our energy committee has reached out, that percentage has dropped to near zero, from 90, 95% down to zero customers. No surprise considering the initial savings, which ranged up to 50% on the energy portion of the electric bill. Of course, I'm not predicting that level of savings, but certainly a savings. To date, the Energy Committee has had presentations by the two community power providers in the state, contacted individuals in 11 communities who have adopted one of these providers about their experiences, all of which were very positive, and then discuss next steps. Based on state legislation, the Energy Committee unanimously recommends that, consistent with New Hampshire RSA 53E, the Select Board establish an electric aggregation committee as the next step towards bringing lower cost and more renewable options to Hopkinton residents and businesses. The workload for the new committee would include gathering more info on the community power providers, how they handle such issues as home solar arrays, define renewable power, etc. The aim would be to make a presentation and recommendation to the Select Board around the September timeframe. If the Select Board opted to go forward with a recommended provider, assuming one is recommended, then the committee would have to start to help educating the public on community power, have several public meetings, and get approval of a warrant article at town meeting, all of which either provider has indicated they would also provide significant assistance. If successful, and if this type of article has been overwhelmingly approved in every community that the Energy Committee is aware of, and the committee would continue working with the chosen provider to ensure a smooth rollout following PUC approval. This is assuming the rates provided by the provider are below that of the utility's default rate. I'll remind you that the way this approach is structured, the only potential cost to the town would be for legal reviews of the agreements. But since they have already been approved by many communities before us, they're quite standard. I've drafted a simple committee charge that's in your packet and really doesn't include anything different than what I've indicated at this point. It's for establishing a community electric aggregation or community power committee, thinking for up to 7 members appointed to serve staggered 3-year terms. Committee would have to elect the chair and the anticipated areas of work, or make a recommendation to the Select Board on how to proceed with community power provider or not. And if the board decides to proceed, then the committee would assist in educating the public through public meetings and town meeting. And if approved at town meeting, the committee would work with the selected provider and the Select Board to get PUC approval and working on a smooth rollout. At this point, 2 members of the Energy Committee that have unanimously agreed to this approach are sitting in the audience. So I don't know, if Steve or Jack, if you want to add anything.
Good evening. I'm Steve Eckberg, currently the vice chair of your electric committee. And thank you, Ken, for that very thorough write-up and presentation of our.
My arm was twisted by the committee to go into detail.
Indeed, and you did an excellent job. Thank you for that. But as Ken outlined, our next step in moving forward with one of the tasks of the electric committee, which is to further investigate and pursue the opportunities of community power aggregation, is to form an official electric aggregation committee as required by statute, as Ken referenced. So we would like the select board to take that step of forming an electric aggregation committee, or authorizing us to do that, as whatever that process is. And we will gather up a sufficient number of members. Many of us on the current electric committee are willing to do double duty, so to speak, to also be on the official electric aggregation committee and continue with the next steps that are necessary to move this process forward and bring further information to the select board.
One thing I want to point out that I wasn't thinking of when we had the energy meeting that Neil pointed out to me is that we have two separate committees, and say we have 4 members of the energy committee also on the aggregation committee, that's a quorum. And so that it would be a quorum is 4 members of the energy committee. If 4 members join the aggregation committee, then we have an issue. How do we deal with that?
Well, I think you might be able to deal with that. I'm not an expert in this, but if if you notice a meeting of the energy committee and then you have 4 of those people together, and we're talking about energy committee issues, that seems different to me than noticing a meeting of the electric aggregation committee. But I guess your concern is if you have an unofficial meeting where those 4 people are together, but you haven't noticed a meeting. That's sort of what your concern is. You want me to volunteer to step down from one of those committees so that we don't have too much overlap?
Don't let
Is
them off
that-
that easy, Ken.
Is that definitely an issue?
Well, Neil pointed out and how much of an issue
Yeah,
is it?
if the one committee is meeting and they start discussing business of the other committee,
Right.
Then it's an issue.
then
Then it's-
that's an issue.
That's it, then it's an
Right.
issue.
Because
But if they
that
meet
meeting
for
was
a
not.
purpose, then it's,
Yeah, and I guess the question is how much overlap. I don't know how many people on the energy committee want to be on the.
Well, I mean, that could happen if they're in the audience too, right? Like if they're just
Right.
public, that could happen if they just show up and start discussing it, not just because they're on the committee.
That's true.
So that's a concern all the time.
right. I mean, within the spirit of 91A, my understanding is you really have to they would have to be discussing the issues of that other committee.
So if there was overlap and there was a agenda that, let's say for the aggregation committee, and the agenda was just on community power, that would be okay. And if the energy committee agenda didn't have anything on community power and we didn't talk about it, that would be okay also. Even if there were 4 members that were overlapping, say.
I think the key would be just to be clear whose role is what. That's
Mhm.
mainly it.
Would it be helpful to remove from the energy committee, from their charge, the electric aggregation portion of their charge? So that way it's
But-
like
and
very
it
clear that.
Probably should be if there's going to be
Right, there's gonna be two.
another committee
Mhm.
doing that.
Maybe we should each have 2 different hats, like a yellow one and a green one. And
Well, I mean, overlap like this happens with the open space and conservation too, but you don't unless the group was like, we are intending to hold an impromptu meeting of the other group, then you'd run into an issue. But if your intent and like in reality, what you're discussing is the matter of the other group that you're on, then I
Mhm.
don't think you run into.
But I think
I don't
Thomas
think
hit it. You just pull community power off.
just
Yeah.
pull
The
it.
energy
Right.
committee's charge because you now have a committee to do that.
And it's not part of the purpose, it's only part of the anticipated areas of work, so like, if we just
Mhm.
Mhm.
remove that, and I think the committee can do that too, right? We don't, like, the select board doesn't need to do that,
And you voted that, so you would have to do that.
the anticipated areas of work.
Yeah, that was adopted.
And sorry, for the electric aggregation committee, that this is required by state statute in order for us to pursue an eventual community power agreement. This committee has to
It
be formed, and
is.
it has to have 7 people, or is that?
No, some towns have
Could be less.
5. After
Okay.
talking to Ken this afternoon, I looked at what other towns had done and largely their charge is to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it gonna be difficult to find 7? Would it be better to start with 5?
I think 5 is easier than 7,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, when we talked about it at the Energy Committee, let's say nobody said they didn't want to be on the other committee. Nobody said definitely they wanted to be. I assume these 2 guys do. Um, But yeah, I just put 7 because that was the number on the Energy Committee. I'm fine with 5 also.
Are there other members of the energy committee that absolutely want to be on it?
I don't think that would want to speak to
Speak for
them
them.
one way or the
I
other.
just wondered if there should
Yeah.
be 5 with 2 from the energy committee and then 3 more at large.
Mhm,
Which solves kind of all the issues.
mhm.
Wasn't anticipating this complication.
I hadn't thought about it till Neil mentioned it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's
No,
fine. I think it's good to be careful, of course.
And now's the time to determine all that.
Yeah. So maybe leave it at 7, and then if not everybody on the Energy Committee wants to be on both, then, we can see if there are others. And I know that at least one individual is coming to our meetings regularly who may well be interested in Community Power Committee.
Can I ask a different question? Can the electric aggregation committee, can they do other things besides this one thing?
I suppose they could, but that wouldn't be the intent of the formation of the committee. It would be solely to focus on activities and steps needed to move the electric aggregation process forward.
And from our contacts with individuals in other towns that have been involved in their process, I think there's going to be a fair amount of work involved.
I can interject, I'm just wondering what would the downside be of having 5 members? Be a whole lot easier to get there than get to 7.
5-member committees do things more quickly than 7-member committees.
I don't really like-
Do things more quickly than 7-member committees.
Yeah, I just don't know how many members of the Energy Committee are, want to join this committee. And, if there are 5, then that's excluding anybody else from the outside.
They can go to the meetings. Right?
Yeah,
We could, if need be, we can certainly always come back to the select board and ask for permission to expand the committee size if that's an issue. If we find
So if
there's.
we get a bunch of applications.
What if you vote to establish the committee tonight? Then the work is done to find the members and to put the charge into final form. And at your next meeting, you do the final charge form and appoint the members.
sounds good to me.
That doesn't slow things down at all.
Hmm.
And if you have 5 people, then the committee can be 5 if it's.
Okay. At this point, do we need any kind of a motion or?
I guess they won't start. So as long as there's consensus that this is moving forward, I think that probably covers it.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Anything for other?
No.
All right. Then we have one two
Two.
non-publics to under A3 2 discussing leases. Yeah,
And
sorry, and
also discussing lease.
right, so two non-publics for leases. And after that, we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for those who joined us online. And I will move, we go into non-public under our say 91A3 2D.
I'll second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Ken,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
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 Jeff's a yes. Okay, going into non-public.
Hey.